Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. Huge matches in the last 24 hours around the VCT kickoff world, especially in the Americas. NRG advancing all the way through with some big drama, it seems, between Chet and the coaches on the other side of Cloud9, but also Loud versus LEV. What a series that was, setting up the Sentinels match tomorrow. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, we're going to start in EMEA here with what's happened in the, FNATIC game, effectively. Dirk actually revealed in their post-game interview that Leo didn't even have comms. Now, I believe they clarified on the Reddit here that there were 2 rounds where Leo didn't have mic and he couldn't communicate and everything, so it wasn't the entire series, and they tried to call a timeout, but it just didn't really happen. So, yeah, I don't know what happened there, but still, they managed to get the victory regardless, and FNATIC looking pretty scary, to be fair. We'll see that series in just a second. Wanted to firstly look at the Chinese region because lots of 2-0s so far. We saw yesterday Dragon Ranger Gaming, they eventually won that game 1 that we saw, and then they took the Ascent more comfortably 13-4, and then Wolves also took down Billy Gaming as well. So this was interesting to set up the match against, of course, Edward Gaming, the #1 team from that region. So it's all going on at the moment, to be honest, around the world. And then we just saw then Nova Esports knocked out Tyloo. So that's GG. Tyloo are gone 13-11, 13-11. That is a tough way for these guys to lose. But yeah, this is the way the rest of those groups are setting up at the moment. Of course, with 2 of these teams will make it through to Masters Madrid. This was the FNATIC game. They're up against Vitality. It was very interesting. Game 1 Lotus went all the way to an overtime. Vitality had a great second side, big comeback to be fair, but in the end, FNATIC were just a little bit too strong. They got over the line, and then the Ascent was not especially close. So FNATIC doing what you'd expect FNATIC to do. Alpha had a ridiculous, series as well, and even Boaster. You got to say there was talk about Boaster because 34th in 29. Like, look at him go. He's absolutely frying. Good ACS as well here on the Omen, and there was lots of discussion really about Boaster and his aim training. Right, he mentioned it during the off season that he was working with an aim coach. I don't think he actually has an aim coach. I think he clarified that, but he's definitely been working on his aim training, right? And he said this very clearly, and it does seem to be paying off because he knows that if he gets a couple more kills per round than might be normally expected, then he's going to be in a great spot, and that's exactly what happened. So Heretics advanced, of course, Na'Vi advanced as well. They took down Liquid 2-0. This wasn't especially close, 13-7, 13-7, so they advanced on through. So then, obviously, Movistar also took down BBL. So lots happening right now, of course. Today's the 24th, and that means there's a little bit of a break before these decided games happen in the EMEA side as things kind of round up in the Pacific that we'll see here in a couple of minutes' time. But speaking of the Americas, big games yesterday, of course, the deciders in terms of who's going to go through to the playoffs, which is massively important. And it is very plausible, actually, and I'd say there's roughly a 50% chance that the 2 teams that won yesterday will play each other in the playoffs, of which only one of those can qualify, which would be very, very interesting. So this is what happened yesterday. Zelsis predicted C9 to win and Loud to win, and he went 50-50, I suppose, because this was the series. Cloud9 versus NRG. NRG took the game 1, and, I mean, it was a crazy finish here, really. Demon 1 turned up big time. It was an interesting one because I think Oxy is so good. We know that he's so good, but it was like a focus really on that Oxy was... He'd love it when Demon 1 was there and he could try and get a first blood against him. But when that wasn't available anymore, Oxy didn't quite have the same impact that you might have expected. But, big series on a big stage. This is when NRG, whatever they've done in scrims as a theoretical championship contender with all the players they have and what they've achieved previously, I think they really came to play as you might have expected them to. So in the end, it was a 2-0. They took down game 1, Cloud9 on the Sunset 13-7. The Ascent was far closer, and Cloud9 took it all the way to an overtime in the end. But NRG just had too much. So, Demon 1 was a monster here on the Sunset, and then the Ascent was 14-12. So similar in a way to FNATIC, right? So that, they won one of the maps comfortably. The other one was a close overtime that they eventually won. NRG will feel a bit concerned that they couldn't close out that defense on the Ascent as they would have expected to, but at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. So NRG advance on. Not especially impressed by Cloud9, to be honest, and I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that MIBR upset Cloud9 here in the lower side, but maybe that's a bit too far to say, because I think C9 looked okay, but it's really tough to read into like how good NRG actually are, because they've not played great teams in that group. They had the easier group. They needed to come out with the #1 seed for sure, which they've gone on to do. But you look at the Group B, Group of Death or whatever, the level of Valorant being played there, I think, is still a cut above based on what we saw yesterday. And we may see evidence of that when the playoffs happen, of course, in a couple of days' time. So Cloud9, they still can get through, but it's obviously going to be a much harder road now. And as Marv says, one more series. the issue, of course, is that it's one more series, but it's also not like, oh, one more, but if we lose, we still have a chance. It's one more, but if we lose, then it's done. And this is what DRX are experiencing right now, that they played not many maps at all because, you know, NRG, they've won 2-0, they've won 2-0. They go into the playoffs having played 4 maps, whereas the team that they will play will, you know, more than likely have played far more maps than that. And it's just going to be a single best of 3 to determine who, you know, goes to Masters of Madrid. So pretty wild, really. But the drama of the day, I've got to say, was again this guy Chet, who is, as we full well know, not afraid of voicing his opinion. But as he says, GG's well played 2-0 Cloud9. I bet they're wondering why their coach is saving tax. I guess what he means is saving tactical pauses, of which there weren't many used by the Cloud9 side. And Chet thinks, look, you should have taken some to actually get your head in the game a little bit better. So roasting their coaching staff, which I thought was pretty funny, especially when Cloud9 tweeted the following out, when they just done the vetoes here. We see, obviously, we've got Vanity, we've got Ethan, and then we've got Imi, and we've got Chet. And as we can see, they refuse to do a fist bump. Chet just doesn't even pay attention to Imi. I don't know why there's beef between these two. I don't know why Chet is beefing with, like, every coach under the sun, it seems. But pretty funny, right? What exactly is in this? Enjoy your thoughts in the comments below on why there's a bit of beef between Imi and Chet, that they don't want to, you know, fist bump or show no respect. And then after the series, of course, Chet's coming out and going rogue on Imi effectively on the timeline. So very entertaining, and maybe a rematch is in store at some point, which would be very interesting to see. And Demon One says, you know, they're going to make it to Madrid. They've got 5 champions. But as I've said, the next round they play will be against a very good team. There's no doubt about it. And it is quite possibly going to be against Loud, because Loud have advanced from that Group B in this series against Leviathan. And look, I thought this was going to go to a Game 3. It did go to a Game 3. But Loud were again the stronger team, and just massively impressive from Sadak and those guys. We know that the tier lists were going down. Of course, Aspas is gone. The question was there, could they put it together again? But I really think that for Loud, the amount of innovation they're able to come up with, right, and the amount of things that they generate during the series is just remarkable. Like the compositions they bring to play. I think the Ascent was quite fascinating because they pulled out that composition the other day against Sentinels, and people thought, okay, well, you know, given a few days to learn to counter it, you'll be okay. But there's just so much utility. And Loud, I mean, look at this. Aspas clutches are insane 1 versus 2 here. And LEV are up 1-0. They're up 10-9. You think they're going to have enough, but no. Loud eventually bring the comeback, and they take the Game 3 as well on that, you know, ridiculous Ascent comp. Well, it's kind of ridiculous on paper, but it's working for these guys right now. Unless on the Perma Viper has just been an absolute revelation. I mean, have a look at this. Plus 28, 1.5 rating here on the Viper, 61 in 33. The entire team played well, of course, and, you know, Aspas was kind of shut down for the most part. So, you know, LEV, they looked good. I think the level of VALORANT here was very impressive. LEV won their map pick. Then, of course, Loud brought back 4 straight attacking rounds at the end when push came to shove to get over the line. And then the Ascent was, you know, just so hard to deal with that composition they put together, it seems. So I think that LEV, I imagine they would have looked into what they did against Sen and thought, okay, let's try XYZ to counter it. But apparently this is just proving very, very difficult to counter, right? So yeah, congrats to Loud. I think Sadak as well, like just what a player, right? Everything about this guy's character and the way that he's able to get this team again and again fired up and ready to go. All the changes these other teams have made, the Sentinels moves, the Leviathan moves, losing Aspas and all these things that have happened to still turn up into the group and look like comfortably the best team in that group, in the group of death, was just really, really impressive. But they've not qualified yet for Masters Madrid. That's going to be one step further. We'll discuss how that might look here in a second. As Tech says, yeah, GG's Loud, looking amazing, but they've still a chance as well because they play Sentinels next up, and that is going to be a banger. Sen versus LEV, one of those teams goes through to the play-in, one of them goes home immediately, and of course the team that goes to the play-in still has a chance, but it's obviously going to be difficult. So yeah, Sen will try and send them home, as this guy says in the replies, but of course they have a rather international team, which makes it rather difficult, you could argue, to find that way you're going to send them home too. But this is the way that it's all looking right now. We don't know until these matches conclude exactly what the playoff groups are going to be, or the playoff matches are going to be, but NRG and Loud, they're through to the playoffs, and there is a reasonable chance, because there won't be a rematch here, right? So Loud will not be allowed to rematch with LEV or Sen. So let's say Sen or LEV win, and they also go on to win the play-in, which they would be favoured to do at that point. Loud would not be able to play either of those two teams. So Loud at that point would either play against G2 or EG, the winner of this one, or they would play NRG, right? Is the way it goes. So, you know, basically toss a coin, and that is the chances of Loud NRG being like a one-shot qualifying elimination game for Masters Madrid, which would be pretty absurd, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happens given the history between these two over the last couple of years. But we've also got to talk about the Pacific, because that's been going on today as well. Paper Rex, they did secure their spot as well through the playoffs, actually, so they're now locked into Masters Madrid. They cooked up something here. I mean, have a look at this, right? What is this composition? What are we doing here? On the split, by the way, with a Euro, Jet, and Raze comp, I mean, like, a fair play, honestly. This is just Paper Rex in a nutshell. They've got Omen as well. Like, this is W Gaming at its absolute best, to be fair. But game one did go to an overtime, and T1 made it very competitive indeed. We know that the storyline here, the real big one, was Excurit and Forsaken, the two brothers, off against, you know, playing off against each other. Only one of them could actually win and go through. But Paper Rex and Forsaken here with this Yoru Masterclass in a very important round. They took the game one. They took the game two 13-6 in the end on Ascent, and that is Paper Rex confirming their spot all the way through to Masters Madrid. So this is how things are presently looking. Paper Rex go through. They've qualified now to Madrid. Of course, they're in the grand finals as well. So the first team are pretty sure internationally to do so, and the second team will be determined very shortly indeed between DRX and Gen.G. As it stands, it's 7-5 to DRX, but as I said, Gen.G have played 14 maps, I'm pretty sure, so far this stage, or this set of qualifiers. DRX have won all of theirs. So, if anything, it's an interesting one, because Gen.G have had 12 hours of playtime on LAN going into this series, and DRX have had not anywhere near as much as that. But of course, the reason being is because DRX are theoretically the better team, therefore they've won their games more convincingly, and therefore that is the scenario right now. So this is DRX's pick on the binds. As I say, it's currently leaning their way, but the loser of this one goes home. So commiserations, of course, to T1 and those boys, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.